Okay, we are recording. Toby, how are you today?
Very good, very good. We're in Istanbul, and our 3 week vacation that we have planned a long time finally is starting. I have worked very hard for the last year.
Oh, fantastic. Well deserved. Well deserved. Well, I'm going to pull you away from that vacation just for about 40 minutes to talk music today, and
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued to have this conversation today because if anybody knows how to put a song together, then I think you're more than qualified to have that conversation.
Oh,
Um,
I have to say for disclaimer that my tooth chipped. I have to find a dentist in Istanbul, but I will. So
Fantastic. Well, we've already before we press record, we've both been talking about our broken teeth and how we're going to get them sorted, and I had it
yes.
last week. But first of all, to get your playlist started today, Toby, I'm going to ask you please to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
I would say that must be Etta James at last. That string intro is so iconic. It just takes you on a journey. It takes you into a whole different world and emotion. It has so much emotion. I would say that's the best string intro or the best intro period of any song.
I'm interested to know, Toby, because you're responsible for putting together some of the biggest records in the history of music, and what I'm interested in now is if that song was presented to a record company now, it's a beautiful song at last, of course. But the thought that that intro is maybe 15 seconds of lush strings, which I absolutely adore. But do you think, in the way that pop music is made now, that a record company will be, oh, that's too long, that intro? And where I'm going with this, Toby, is when you're making music, we're seeing the importance of things like TikTok being used to market music and Spotify playlists, all of which move very quickly, and attention spans are getting smaller, and so the pressure, I guess, is to hook them quickly and keep them there. Do any of them factors and ways that people get their music enter into your creative process?
Yeah, that's a long question which deserves a long answer. This intro hooks me from the very first note. And then the first note that Edda sings coming in hooks me instantly. Those are Instagram moments. And it is all about having these goosebump moments in music where after 5 seconds you must hear more because it grips you. And yes, so social media has changed everything. We're in a whole new era now that has just started very recently. And social media nowadays, every artist, every human being can be in direct contact with an audience and find an audience and communicate with that audience. Back in the day, if you think about just 10, 20 years ago, if you wanted to make music, you would have to find someone who would, first of all, pay a music studio for you. Now you have that in your laptop. And then with that, make that music, but then start promoting that record by telling the world there's going to be a piece of plastic in some record store somewhere waiting for you. You won't be able to listen to it, but you know one song of that album. You have to pay $20. And just based on this beautiful cover picture, please buy it. There might be crap on the other songs. We won't tell you, but we promise it's good. And nowadays, you write a song, you can put it out anytime you want on DistroKid or AWAL. It's going to be on all the platforms. And it's not even downloads anymore. It's streaming now, where every time someone listens, we know they're listening, which is amazing. You have a direct feedback, and the fans can directly talk to you and say we like it or we don't. It's these are amazing new times, and it's having incredible effects in a way that major labels nowadays do the same thing that artists do. Like even of famous artists, the major labels base all their promotional efforts on the social media of the artist,
Yeah.
which the artist can do themselves. And it's a very transformative time we're witnessing right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, you're the first person. I've done over 550 episodes of this show,
Whoa,
and
that's a lot.
and you're the first person to choose that Etta James record, which I'm surprised at because it's a beautiful track and it's such a lush intro. And I was just sort of trying to think like, has anyone chose anything similar to that? And the only thing that I think come close to that is a few people have chosen A Change Is Going to Come by Sam Cooke, which has
Hmm.
that long string intro before Sam Cooke's beautiful voice kicks in, and
Yes.
and yeah, I'm just always intrigued as to how songwriters consider these changes and trends in the industry, because if you even sort of look back to the sort of 60s and you know, because I've had guests go, oh, the greatest intro is Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles, or Strawberry Fields, but then, which is this psychedelic long intro, whereas other people will go, no, it's Help by the Beatles because it's bang, straight away, Help,
Yeah.
and it's got
Get to
you.
the point. Yeah.
And like, yeah, and I think, but even when you look back at Motown, all of them, that, you know, the first 5 years of Motown, they were just 2.5 minutes of just hook, 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 and just
Yeah.
perfect pop. Like, so, but then even Motown moved into What's Going On, and the Temptations doing Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Then pop sensibilities then become embrace the psychedelia, and you know, and I know Berry Gordy famously didn't rate What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, which then obviously become the biggest selling album in the history of Motown. And so I think there's no right or wrong answer to an intro, whether it's this big elongated lush string or
I
just
think in the end, music is all that music is a feeling, and you're trying to put this feeling into a recording. And while you record, we are very enthusiastic about making music, and sometimes we feel like sometimes I write a song and I have chills and goosebumps throughout the session, and I go, "Wow, this is so intense! The world needs to hear this." And then if this record gets out and people actually have the same feeling or a similar response, that's when we succeed. And if a song doesn't make you feel anything, it's irrelevant. So it's really just the feeling. And I think anything else, like how long, if it's in key, if the singer is in tune, whatever, all that doesn't really matter. It's about, does it make you feel something? And if you feel something, you win. That's all. There's some punk artists who don't sing in key, but it makes you feel revolutionary, or you feel
absolutely.
like, wow, I want to be part of this. I want to be this right now. And if you get that feeling, that's all we need.
Well, that brings us on perfectly to the next track. And Toby, I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song that you remember that had an emotional impact on you.
I remember I was a young kid, and someone in the living room was watching Queen, and it was on the television, and I saw them perform "We Are the Champions" with these walls of lights behind them. We are the champions, and that it summed it all up. Like that intense emotion, it touched on so many different. Like it had something demonic. It had something. Like that authority on stage of Freddie Mercury, and it was so euphoric. It had all these emotions packed into this chorus and into this insane, beautiful verse. And Freddie Mercury, if you ask me who I think is one of the best writers, performers, singers, must be Freddie Mercury in that top 10. He is so incredible. Back in the day, my brother and a friend and me, we started making fake VIP passes. That was a time before you could print things, and only people had Xerox. So we had these little letters that you could rub off onto plastic stickers. So we bought these blank plastic stickers and rubbed the letters on VIP and the band name and backstage only. And then we put it here, and we walked through very quickly in the VIP entrance with a poker face. And we got into maybe 100 concerts over 5 years. We
Wow.
saw everybody. We saw Prince, we saw Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, we saw Freddie Mercury, Queen, anyone, Supertramp, all the bands of that time. We went to the concerts. Yes, which was incredible. I remember seeing all the greats when I must have been like 14, 15 years old. Anyone who came to Munich, we got in.
That's ridiculous. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Going back to that moment of seeing Freddie performing "We Are the Champions." If you had to pinpoint the emotion, what was it?
It's even hard to say what it was, but it was so intense. It was, you knew this guy was giving everything. It was life or death on stage. He was 100%. That was him on stage, and he would die for this performance. And you couldn't help but feel
Sure.
something very strong, whatever that feeling was. For some it was sexual, for some it was revolutionary, for
Yeah,
some
yeah,
it was just pure beautiful music, for some it was operatic, for some it was I want to sing along, and for some it was the words. It touched on so many different
yeah,
uh what do you say, layers.
yeah. Absolutely. And so, did you grow up in Munich?
I grew up outside of Munich in a very small village by a river, and I spent all my life on a bicycle, um, just riding around through the forest, along the river, knocking at my friends' doors. Do you have time to play with me? There was a time before cell phones, so I guess I was a hustler back then already. And just if I wanted to play or do something, I would just go from door to door until I found someone who had time.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, let's go back to them earlier years. Tell me about the song that reminds you of your time at school, please, Toby.
Yeah, that would have to be Dreamer from Supertramp. It was a little traumatic, my upbringing, because my mom, when I was 7 years old, went to India and joined that Bhagwan cult with the hippie movement. She came
Wow.
back, and my parents divorced, and then she moved to the countryside, far away from like 2 hours with the bicycle away from where we lived, and started a commune with a bunch of people who would do drugs and group sex and whatever stuff that you don't want to see when you're 8 years old. But I just remember several of these times I would take the bicycle and ride forever over the fields in the countryside, along the fields and forests, and sing "Dreamer" from Supertramp on the top of my lung. And that song gave me comfort. Somehow it made me feel good.
And being at school, was that an escape for you? Did you enjoy your time at school?
I think I slept through school. Because early on, my brother and me, we would try to perform wherever we could. We did hundreds of small shows. Any opportunity we could play, we would play. And also, my parents' jazz band, they didn't have a babysitter, so we would sleep in their car while they were performing in Munich, which I think is illegal nowadays.
and,
And
and
so we were tired every time when it was time for school. If I would doze off all times, and in the break, I would finally get my 15-minute nap, and it was I was the worst student ever.
and so I imagine home was a very musical environment then.
Home was a lot of music, even though my parents, even though they played maybe twice a week in different venues in Munich, music was a hobby for them though. And they could never imagine that we could make money, like serious money with music. They always thought, oh, it's something you do on the side. So my parents didn't really support the idea that we would um, make this our living, that we would fully embrace music.
We
But
Sorry, go on, carry on.
it was also a little mess because my mom was gone by the time, and my dad was trying his best to raise my brother and me. We were pretty terrible children. Just very messy boys who never listened to anyone. It was a time of anti-authoritarian upbringing where you don't tell the kids anything, you let them mess up and learn from their mistakes. So we messed up a lot.
Did you did you know what you wanted to do at school? Was music always the option that you was going to pursue?
When I was 10 years old, we were on a radio interview in Munich, and Georg Kostya was the host. He asked me what I want to be when I'm grown up, and I said I want to be an ice cream salesman. I could have ice cream. We were dumb kids. Like you look at the kids now, my 15-year-old daughter, even when she was 10, she was so smart already because with social media, if you want to, you have the knowledge of the world at your fingertips. And if kids, they could at 8 years old, they could know everything we know if they embrace social media in a way where they learn and soak up knowledge. It's incredible. Like I grew up in the woods, I knew nothing. I was just, I don't know.
I don't know. There's something quite beautiful about the simplicity of just wanting free ice cream. I quite like that. Okay, well, look, let's talk about a record store and your local record store, and tell me the first song that you remember buying from a record shop.
So back in the day, we had cassettes and we had vinyl records. And I remember I bought a vinyl record of a group called Saga, and the song was Wind Him Up. And that was a song, at the time I was already playing keyboards. I must have been maybe 13, 14. I was playing keyboards in several bands. Wherever there was a piano, I would play it and tell everyone that one day I'm going to have a Yamaha CP70. That was my biggest dream I could dream of.
When was
To,
this, Toby? What sort of year was this?
must have been around, I mean, I was 13, 14, 70, 1970, no, 1980, 1980.
So the evolution of synth pop and
Yes.
right. Okay, yeah,
And that was actually also the time where when we faked the backstage passes and we got to see
yeah.
Gaga live on tour. We saw them in the Olympia Stadium. Not the stadium, the hall, Olympia Hall. It has like 15,000 people. It's a big venue. And they played that song Wind Him Up, and it really moved me so much. Just the musical arpeggios. It was very much keyboard oriented, that song.
Yeah, and I think when you look at those moments in the evolution of the synthesizer, into mainstream pop, I think that arpeggio of whether it be Donna Summer, I Feel Love, or Cerrone Supernature, it's like them records just were everything. They certainly were to me anyway.
And I Feel Love with Donna Summer is timeless. You play it
Oh,
today, it's just as good
incredible.
as it was then. And that was always one of my dreams, to write a timeless song, a song that's not trendy, but that you could put on in 20 years and it still feels current. That's like a lifetime goal, I feel.
I Feel Love is one of them songs that feels like it was just beamed down from space, and it just sits somewhere else, doesn't it? It's like it
It's
just
its
trans.
own universe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh,
Yeah. Donna Summer, since you brought her up, I worked with Donna but just before she passed, and I
wow.
got to write songs with her in her beach house in Sarasota, and it was a beautiful experience. She was such a warm-hearted soul, but she was also one of the few one-take artists. Like we would write a song, I would record her, and she would sing it once, and then usually I have an artist sing a song, I don't know, five, six, seven, eight, 10 times on just the verse and then the pre and then the chorus, and then pick my best parts. And she sang it once, and I said, "Can you sing it again?" And she did one more take, and then I asked, "Can you sing it again?" And she's like, "Why?" And I thought, maybe give me some options. Maybe it can get better. But she says it's perfect. And I listened back, and it was perfect. There was nothing out of tune. Everything was on time. A lot of emotion. She's such a great vocalist. She was one of those. I mean, at that point, she must have been 65 or something, and
Yeah.
had just had a career of really knowing her voice, and it was perfect. She's an incredible singer, I must say. Really incredible singer, Donna Summer.
Oh, what a moment to have shared. That's
Yeah.
incredible. One of the things I want to ask you about, you mentioned cassettes and vinyl, and I think when we think of like vinyl, and obviously seen a big resurgence in vinyl sales, certainly in the UK, over the last sort of 5 years. Um, One of the things that I feel is lost in there's so many benefits to the digital format and to Spotify and to having endless music, at your disposal. I love it. Um, but I do feel the one thing that gets lost a little bit is that classic album artwork, that iconic sleeve that when you see it on Spotify and it's that big, you don't get the impact of when you would pick up that Supertramp record or that Queen album and be able to go through the sleeve notes. And do you know what I mean?
100%. Also, that it is a thing. It's a thing that you have to handle with care, otherwise it scratches, and you will regret that scratch for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's an event. My daughter has a vinyl record player, and sometimes after dinner we all lie down in her room, and she puts on a vinyl, and we listen to one side of the vinyl, and it's an event, and we
Yeah.
all are glued to this crackling, uneven sound of whatever the vinyl can deliver to us. When I started making music with Frank Farian, Frank was one of the few people who had a vinyl record press.
Oh,
He could
really?
actually make the so-called mother, the thing, what the first, what do you, the form of which all the other vinyls are pressed later on.
Oh, like the acetate.
It cost $500,000, that thing, and he would make that very first print of from which all the other prints were made, and he was really good at that. I watched him many times. He would do his own singles and then print that and then have a courier drive across Germany to have them made and have a courier drive back to his place and then have people drive it to the DJs across Germany. It was such an event when he released a single.
Wow.
It's crazy.
But they're like, there's value in that journey, isn't there? Because I guess you because it's more tangible that you. I don't know. It just feels there's a journey attached to that, and I don't know. I think there is something lost in the digital age, but there's so many more benefits to it. But I do think that having that tangible item in your hand and the experience of going, right, let's put that record on and let's all listen to
Yeah.
it. Like, there's something nice about that.
I mean, at heart, I'm also an environmentalist, and I keep thinking all this plastic that goes to waste of the records that don't sell or the records that we don't listen to anymore. Um, it's wonderful now that there isn't a thing attached anymore. And it's really just the airwaves. It's just the music.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely.
clean, the process.
That's a great point.
Environmental standpoint, this is fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Toby, can you tell me the song that soundtracked your years clubbing, please?
Yes, I remember clearly. So my mom, as I mentioned earlier, she moved out and then eventually moved to London. She lived in Vauxhall. She was one of the early squatters. That was a time when London was in shambles and real estate was very cheap and loads of streets were abandoned. And the first house she moved to as a squatter burned down. They weren't very careful with the gas lines. And then the next house she moved to, she got together with 200 people from New Zealand who squatted a whole city block. And it's called Bonington Square. They talked to the city and said, if you let us stay here, we'll clean this up and make it pretty. And they did. And so until my mom passed 2 years ago, she was living for like £200 a month in a two-bedroom place just because she was one of the early squatters who helped make Bonington Square the
Wow.
paradise. Yeah, it's a paradise now. It's
Your
beautiful.
mum's had a crazy life, man.
She did, yes, she did. And okay, around this time, I got to visit my mom once a year when we had a school break, and I always like to organize things. So I remember that one time I made little flyers and I gave them to everyone in my class in school and all my friends, and I said, "Free vacation to London, come with me. You can stay for free." And I had 17 of my friends. We flew to London. We crashed my mom's house without telling her. She thought I was coming. We took over her apartment. We slept crisscross over each other for 2 weeks in the rooms. I remember the bathroom clogging up all the time. But we were just running around London. I must have been 13, maybe, or 14, around
Wow.
that. And somehow we got into clubs, even though I was way too young for it. And the record at the time was Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes. And Trevor Horn is probably one of the producers who have influenced me the most. At the time, Trevor Horn was doing these concept albums with Grace Jones, Slave to the Rhythm, and Yes, Owner of a Lonely Heart, and
ABC.
yes, I mean, Trevor Horn was a legend. He's still a legend, but at the time, I think that was his years. Tattoo at the time, amazing. I was such a fan of Trevor Horn and Peter Gabriel, of course.
Yeah.
And Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes. It just felt revolutionary. You could dance to it. It was like a 10-minute odyssey of sounds, and it took you into the jungle, and it was sensual, sexual. It had again like We Are the Champions with Freddie Mercury and Queen. It just touches on so many different emotions that yeah, that what a record.
And I mean, that could quite easily be one of the greatest intros ever as well. You know, that 3 minute warning, and then like, amazing. Have you heard the New York mix of Relax that takes about 15 minutes to get going, and it just Trevor Horn just adds the layers and the layers and the layers, and I
I'm not
find,
sure what the mix was called, but we were in the clubs listening to the song and dancing to
oh,
the song
so good,
everywhere. It was
so
so
good.
good. Yeah.
I think Trevor Horn is absolutely he revolutionized production, and I think
Have you interviewed him yet?
no, I read his book recently. His
Oh,
book's
you must interview
fantastic.
him.
I would love to interview him.
Yes, I
Uh,
know someone who knows him. I could get to him if you want to.
oh, that would be absolutely incredible because
I'll click on that.
the first record I ever bought was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles, which
Oh
was
my God.
obviously Trevor Horn. Fantastic pop record.
Yeah, and
Um,
what a transformative record. That's just sign of the times. It's a
yeah,
record that this is a movement that just happened at the time, and he put the perfect soundtrack song to it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Um, I'm so glad you mentioned Trevor Horn. When I saw that you'd chosen Two Tribes, I was like, right, for somebody that makes music and produces music, I want to know, how influenced you were by Trevor Horn. So you beat me to it. That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to take you home for track 6, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
So the artist would be Herbert Grönemeyer. I don't know if you know Herbert Grönemeyer in England. He's German and sings in German and is very good with the choice of his words. It gets to the heart. He's very soulful. His performance, almost, like Hucknall on Simply Red, is just such a soulful singer. That would
Yeah.
be Herbert Grönemeyer in Germany. And he had many songs that really touched me. One of them is called Männer, which is men. And he describes men as very vulnerable and almost in a female context also, not the masculine, like trying to, the American perception of men is very different from my perception, very testosterone and
Yeah,
strong and military and guns and fighting and blah, blah, blah. I think that's all bullshit in my opinion.
absolutely.
So yeah, I think Herbert Grönemeyer wraps all this up with his song Männer, and he kills it. He also gives awareness to the sentimental aspect that we have.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And for your closing track, this is where you get to turn people onto something that they may not have heard. And that's the song that you think many may not know that you would like them to hear, please.
So, well, when I started my album Piano Diaries, which just came out 2 weeks ago, a little
Yeah.
plug, I was super excited about, I felt, wow, I'm recording new masters with new artists on my old songs. And when I had those, I started messing around with it and also doing remixes. So several of these songs have remixes attached to them. And in that context, since I haven't done a lot of remixes in my life, I did a lot of research with what do other DJs do and what would resonate with me as far as dance music. And now also in Germany, I was a judge in Germany 2 years ago. I did 18 primetime episodes as a TV judge, which reconnected me with my German heritage because I've lived in America 25 years and completely forgot about the German language and German music. So I had a reason to dig back into German music and German dance music. And so I dug up this one song from a group called Pazoo, or Pazoo, I don't even know how to say it, Pazoo, Pazoo. And the song is called Schlechte Manieren, which means bad manners. And that song, I feel it feels revolutionary. It's like a fuck you song to everything. And yet it really gets me going. And I love listening to it. It makes me feel something. I would want to recommend this song because it's against all rules and it brings out something in us that is like autonomy and wow, we're doing things differently and fuck everything
Absolutely.
else.
Absolutely. And we make it easy for listeners of the podcast to listen to that and all the other tracks that you've spoken about because we put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the podcast so people can go and listen to all of the tracks. Now you mentioned Piano Diaries a moment ago, and I think it's important to spend a little bit of time sort of talking about that because for listeners that may not be aware of Toby, like they're going to be very aware of your work that has been, represented by some of the biggest artists on the planet. I think we're talking like 15 billion streams. I think you've amassed now, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And so, if you sort of could you tell the listeners a little bit about I mean, some of the songs that are going to be on that on that record, and why you chose to sort of then rework them and do them in the style that you have.
Yeah, so some of these songs are like Big Girls Don't Cry is 20 years old. All of Me just had a 10-year anniversary. And listening to these songs, I felt I want to pass the torch to new singers, to the new talent. And I picked singers whose voices I like very much and asked them if they wanted to do covers of my songs, which is something I haven't done all my life. I've never done a cover in my life, and I've never really worked with other people's songs or samples for that matter. It's always had to be original for me. And so this is the first time I was actually doing covers and covers of my songs. So I started last year with Victoria Justice, recording my Fergie song, Big Girls Don't Cry, and it resonated. Kelly Clarkson wanted us on her TV show. We performed it. That led to a lot of press from Billboard and so on. And then Universal Republic let us use their singer Camilio to cover my Demi Lovato song Skyscraper. And after that, we did my TikTok hit Little Do You Know with Kiki Palmer and Aloe Black. And then my Veronica's double platinum song Untouched we did with Johnny Orlando, who's a big TikToker from Canada, also on Universal Records. And then my Beyonce song, If I Were a Boy, we recorded with 18-year-old Angelina Jordan, also Universal Republic, which to me is a real accomplishment that now major labels let me independently release a song with their artists. That is major to me. I love that. And after that, we did my Jessie J song, Who You Are, with the youngest X Factor winner ever, Louisa Johnson. And
Louisa Johnson is from my hometown. She
oh,
lives.
she is.
Oh, Jessie J's from the same place. They're both from a little place called Essex in the UK.
They're amazing.
But Louisa Johnson literally lives up the road from me.
She is such a sweetheart and such an incredible performer. I've performed the song with her a few times. It's unreal. Like on YouTube, you can find a performance where we performed in the Piano Smith Field in London.
Yeah.
Who You Are, and I know very few singers who can pull this off. She is so good. And then the last song we just released, that's my John Legend song, All of Me. And I made a duet with me on TikTok, and Selena Sharma answered that duet with her version, and it was really good. And so we recorded All of Me and released it now. And that completes that. Those are 7 songs. And then we added one more song. So that's the album. It's 8 songs on the album. And it's called Piano Diaries, the Hits. And those are sparse piano vocal versions with some orchestrations. And when I write songs, it's quite often just the piano and the vocal. We start from scratch with an idea and we build around it. But at first, it's really just piano vocal. And that's when I feel the magic. And I wanted to let people feel the magic of just piano vocal, because the vocal has so much space to breathe and the lyric can come across. And it was a challenge to me to actually reinterpret these songs, reinvent these songs with just piano vocal. And I felt this way it could be timeless, because piano vocal will be, in 30 years from now, people will still listen to piano vocal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the album's out now, right?
The album's out now, Piano Diaries, the Hits, and you can find it on Spotify if you look me up as an artist, Toby Gad. And I'm very proud of it. And I'm working on a deluxe version now with 15 songs, probably end of the year. And it has opened so many doors to adventures I've never thought of, like the live performing aspect. I've been on many stages now performing Piano Diaries with different artists. Oh. And all kinds of things I never dreamt of, making all the music videos with the artists for Piano Diaries. A great journey.
Oh, fantastic. When the deluxe version comes out, you've got to come back on the show and we'll talk about that as well.
I would love that. It's going to include my Madonna songs and songs with other artists that I'm very proud of.
Oh, Toby, I've had such a lovely time talking music with you. It's been an absolute joy.
Same.
If people want to find out about everything that you're up to, releases, appearances, where's the best place to keep up to speed?
My Instagram, Toby Gad Music, TOBYGAD Music. Everything's on there. My TikTok also, or my YouTube, YouTube/Toby Gad. We've done a lot of music videos now where I'm really putting a lot of money, like $10,000 into a music video just because I love the process of it, and we film it with great cameras and great camera teams. So a lot of these songs now have really professional music videos as well, and I feel it's planting seeds and it's doing something that hopefully in 5, 10 years will be relevant as well.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Well, if it's okay with you, I'll take you in all of the promo when this episode drops. So if people aren't following you already, then they can do so.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Toby, have a wonderful day, and thanks again for coming on today. It's been an absolute joy.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute
Goodbye.
pleasure.